What's up, fam? It's your boy Legend, and I am back with another video. Part 7 of What If Naruto Was a Failed Experiment. If you guys like the videos and you want more of this type of content, hit that like button. The like goal is 7 likes. Now, quick disclaimer for all the parents that watch my videos, if I even have parents that watch my videos. It gets sad. Really sad. Towards the end of this video, even a little bit sad in like the middle of the video. So this disclaimer is for you guys, because it's very easy to picture your children in a situation like this. So this disclaimer is for you guys, and I'm just letting you guys know. But let's get into this intro so we can start this What If. 4:03 p.m. Hokage's office. The double doors of the Hokage's office slammed open with a thunderous crack, the sound bouncing against the vaulted walls. Scrolls rattled in their shelves. A quill rolled off the edge of Minato's desk, and the man himself flinched only slightly before his gaze settled on the woman who had just burst in. Kushina Namikaze stood there, chest heaving, her crimson hair a storm around her flushed face. Irritation and panic warred in her eyes. Her fist balled at her sides, as if she'd just fought her way through a battalion instead of the quiet corridors of the Hokage Tower. Minato set his pen down with a deliberate slowness and leaned back in his chair. His golden hair shifted with the motion, catching the faint light of the late afternoon sun that bled through the tall windows. "Kushina?" he said evenly, voice steady against her tempest. "What is it?" She marched to his desk, planting her hands flat against the polished surface with enough force to make the ink pot tremble. "We have a slight problem," she hissed, "and it is quickly turning into a big problem." One of Minato's brows arched, and he sighed, lifting a hand to rub his temple. "What are you talking about, Kushina?" "I'm talking about Ino, Minato, that's what." Her voice cracked like a whip, sharp and furious, though Minato could see the tremor underneath, the genuine fear buried beneath the anger. He let his chair tip back slightly, raising both hands in a gesture of surrender. "Calm down, Kushina. Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do anything." Her glare could have burned holes straight through him. With a sharp puff, Kushina dropped into the chair opposite his desk, arms folding tightly across her chest. She closed her eyes, drawing in a few deep breaths until her shoulders loosened enough for her words to flow again. "I know Ino has a very unhealthy obsession with our son," she said, each word bitten off with precision. "And I know because this morning she snuck into his room through his window, Minato. I went in to wake Naruto up for breakfast, and what do I find? That girl in his bed wearing black lingerie." Minato's expression flickered, a crack in his calm facade. Kushina leaned forward, voice dropping lower, colder. She was holding his head in her hands. His eyes were glazed over. "Minato, I'm certain she was hypnotizing him or something far worse." The Hokage exhaled through his nose, the sound long and weary. Of all the burdens piled on his shoulders, treaties, threats, the avalanche of marriage proposals and contracts pouring in from outside villages, seeking a bond with the Namikaze heir. This was the one he least wanted to face. And beneath it all, the cruelest weight, the shadow of his son's dwindling time, the gnawing dread that if Tsunade failed, there would be nothing left but a grave. He leaned back further in his chair, folding his hands in his lap, eyes narrowing. "So," Minato drawled, the exhaustion leaking through despite his attempt at composure. "What do you want me to do about it, Kushina?" Scene change. Yamanaka compound. 4:41 p.m. Steam curled around Ino Yamanaka like a pale, ghostly finger as she stood beneath the shower head, water cascading down her bare body in glistening rivulets. The droplets traced every curve of her form before falling away, pattering softly against the stone floor. She tilted her head back, and blue eyes glazed slightly, unblinking as she stared into the torrent above her. The water was hot, almost scalding, but she didn't flinch. The burn was grounding, a reminder that she was still here, still in this body, still tethered to reality. Her lips parted faintly as her thoughts drifted, pulled into the undertow of memory. Root. The word alone made the back of her skull ache, as if her mind itself recoiled. She could still smell the damp earth of the compound, the metallic tang of blood that never seemed to wash away. And without meaning to, her mind slid backwards 6 years deep into a memory carved into her bones. Flashback. Root compound. Ino, age 11. The underground chamber stank of mildew and iron. Torches guttered along the walls, their light casting long cruel shadows. Ino lay sprawled across the dirt floor, her right arm bent at an angle it should never bend. Pain screaming along every nerve. Deep lacerations covered her small frame, each one oozing blood that seeped into the earth beneath her. Across from her, another root agent stood, ready, mask impassive, blade gleaming wet in the dim light. And above them, seated just far enough away to avoid the spray of blood, was Danzo Shimura, his one visible eye gleaming with clinical detachment, cold and merciless. "Get up," he said. His voice was gravel, as unyielding as the stone around them. "Continue fighting." Ino's lips trembled, but no sound came out. Her body screamed for rest, for mercy, for anything but this. But mercy was not a word that existed here. She pressed her unbroken hand against the dirt, forcing her battered frame upward. Her vision blurred, stars flashing at the edges. But she did not allow herself to falter. Danzo had long ago torn her emotions away, stripping her down to a husk that obeyed without hesitation. Now he was reforging that husk, enhancing her tolerance to pain, molding her into something more than human, something less than human. She staggered onto her feet, blood dripping from her fingertips. The other agent raised his weapon, but then a flash. Brilliant yellow tore through the chamber like a lightning strike. The agent jerked, eyes wide, as a 3-pronged kunai protruded from the back of his neck. He collapsed to the ground, lifeless, before Ino could even blink. She turned her head, confusion and shock twisting through her battered haze, just in time to hear the wet, sickening sound of steel piercing flesh. Danzo gasped, lips parting, as Minato Namikaze stood above him, a second 3-pronged kunai buried deep into the man's chest. The fourth Hokage's blue eyes were ice. His face, a mask of cold fury that chilled the room more than any winter wind. I told you to shut all of this down, Minato said, his voice low, deathly calm. I told you, if you didn't, I'd turn you into an example. Danzo tried to sneer, tried to speak, but only black ink sprayed from his chest, seals unraveling, curses tearing through the air. His hand trembled, fingers forming the beginning of a death seal. But Minato vanished in a flicker of yellow light, reappearing beside the fallen agent to wrench his kunai free just as Danzo's body writhed. The old man's last breath rattled in his throat before his body stilled, his chest smoking as ink pooled beneath him. The chamber fell silent. Ino's legs gave way. The darkness swallowed her. Hospital room. Hours later. When her eyes opened again, she was bathed in sterile white. Doctors hovered above her, bandaging her wounds, murmuring reassurances she didn't understand. The sheets were crisp, the air antiseptic. For the first time in 6 years, the shadows of Root were gone, and yet, even at 11, she understood one thing. She had survived, but Root had never left her present. The hiss of the shower snapped back into focus. Steam thickened, curling around her vision, as if to smother it. Ino blinked once, then again, shaking her head as the memory bled away. Why did I think of that just now? She murmured, voice barely audible beneath the pounding water. Her hand rose to her lips, trembling faintly before curling into a fist. Because Root wasn't gone. Not really. And neither was the claim she'd made on Naruto Namikaze. It was the same day. The desert sun bleeding into the horizon, the shadows stretching long across the sandstone building of the hidden sand. At precisely 5 in the afternoon, the Kazekage's tower glowed with a faint golden hue, the dying sunlight piercing through the high windows. Inside, Rasa, the fourth Kazekage, sat behind his grand desk. The air was thick with grit and silence, but his gaze was colder than either. Across from him stood the son he had long since disowned, Gaara. Rasa did not see his blood standing there. He did not see a child nor a boy trying to grow into something more. He only saw a weapon, a creature forged by sealing arts and cursed destiny, a beast in human form. His beast. And even so, he hated to look upon it. His lips curled with disgust as he finally spoke. His voice, low and sharp, slicing through the silence like a blade. What do you want, you wild beast? At that instant, the air in the room seemed to shift. The sand contained in Gaara's gourd shivered and spilled across the floor, bristling like the fur of a predator on edge. His sea green eyes narrowed slightly, though his mouth did not open. Inside his mind, another voice answered, rasping, amused, hungry. Not now, Gaara, the one-tail murmured, with laughter dripping from each word. You can't kill him yet. You don't have the strength to do so yet. But when the time comes, oh, when the time comes. Gaara's jaw twitched, but he did not respond aloud. Only a small grunt of acknowledgement escaped him, and as if obeying his command, the swirling grains of sand stilled, retreating quietly back into their container. Rasa leaned back in his chair, unimpressed, pathetic. His disdain was palpable. If you have nothing to say, then get out of my sight. You pollute this office with your presence. His voice held no emotion, no hesitation. To him, the red-haired boy before him was nothing but an unwanted shadow. Gaara turned, wordlessly, the sand whispering faintly behind him as he walked. Not once did he look back. His silence was heavier than steel chains. And though he left the office without a sound, the weight of his suppressed fury lingered in the air long after the door closed. Far from the dry heat of the desert, another village bustled with life. The hidden leaf was alive with the familiar hum of evening lanterns flickering to life, merchants calling out their last sales, and the laughter of children echoing through the narrow streets. Through the village gates strode two figures cloaked in sand colors. Temari and her younger brother, Kankurō, entered the leaf with purpose in their stride. Their mission had been dictated by their father, the Kazekage himself, to discuss the political marriage proposal between Temari and the son of the Hokage. Temari walked tall, her chin held high, her great battle fan strapped firmly across her back. At 18, she carried herself with the confidence of a kunoichi who had fought and survived more battles than most civilians could imagine. Her blonde hair swayed as she moved, and her sharp teal eyes stayed forward, ignoring the stares she drew from nearly every villager they passed. Heads turned, whispers followed. The combination of her striking beauty and the aura of foreign power was enough to command attention. But Temari gave none of it a second thought. She had long since grown accustomed to eyes following her, curiosity, desire, and judgment. None of it mattered. Kankurō, by contrast, smirked under the black paint that covered his face. He noticed every glance, every whisper, and he reveled in the slight unease their presence created. Good, he thought. Let them remember that the sand is not to be taken lightly. The two reached the Hokage's tower, its height and polished stone a sharp contrast to the architecture of their home. Temari rapped her knuckles firmly against the office door. After a pause, a calm voice from within gave permission to enter. The siblings stepped into the Hokage's office. Behind the desk sat Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, his golden hair catching the lamplight. At his side stood Kushina Uzumaki, arms crossed, crimson hair spilling over her shoulders like flames. Temari and Kankurō took their seats across from the Hokage, their posture formal, steady. Temari was the first to speak, her tone polite but direct. Good evening, Hokage-sama. We were sent here by my father to discuss the marriage proposal between myself and your son, Naruto Namikaze. Minato's eyes closed for a moment, his fingers rubbing his temples. The timing of this could not have been worse. Before he could answer, Kushina slammed her hand down onto the desk. Her voice rose, sharp and protective. No! I refuse. This will not happen. I just got my son back, and I do not plan on giving him away anytime soon. Her words echoed through the chamber, startling the Sand siblings. Temari's gaze hardened slightly, though she did not let her composure falter. Minato's eyes snapped open. His tone, though calm, carried an iron edge that left no room for defiance. Kushina. She turned toward him, defiant fire in her eyes. Minato! Kushina, he repeated, softer but sharper. You may be my wife, the mother of my child, and an inspiration to this village. But you will not embarrass me in political meetings. You will not speak for me unless I am physically unable to speak, or my assistant cannot do so in my stead. Do I make myself clear? His words cut without anger, but with authority that could not be challenged. Kushina bit her lip, shame rising to her cheeks. Her voice was small when she finally answered. Fine. I'm sorry for overstepping. Thank you, Minato said, his tone softening but never losing its weight. Now please, exit my office while I conduct this meeting. Kushina's heart ached as she turned, but she obeyed. Without a word, she left the chamber, her footsteps quiet but heavy. Once she was gone, Minato leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as they fixed upon Temari. So, your father wants you to marry my son. Temari clutched her closed war fan in her lap, her fingers tightening slightly around it as she spoke. Yes, he believes it will help solidify the alliance between our villages. Minato steepled his fingers, studying her with piercing blue eyes. And what about you? Do you want to marry my son? Answer me honestly. For the first time, Temari faltered. She shifted in her seat, her gaze unsettling in its intensity. I'm open to the idea, she admitted. At home, things are different. Because of my other brother, the one my father disowned, I've had no suitors. People are afraid of what he is, of what he carries inside of him. They don't want to get close to me or Kankurō. Minato nodded slowly. He knew exactly what she meant. The boy, Gaara, Jinchuriki of the One Tail. To most, he wasn't a boy at all. But the demon itself walking in human skin. I see, Minato said at last. His tone softened, but his eyes remained sharp. Temari, here is what will happen. I will arrange lodging for you and Kankurō for 1 week. During that time, I want you to spend time with my son. Get to know him. See with your own eyes what kind of person he is. After that week, return to me if you still wish to pursue this. I will tell you something you will need to know before making your choice. Temari nodded, her expression thoughtful. Kankurō smirked faintly, though curiosity gleamed in his eyes. Minato picked up his brush and began filling out the necessary paperwork. The future was uncertain, but the stage had been set. Meanwhile, at the Namikaze Uzumaki compound, Naruto sat quietly in his room, the pale glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the walls. His hand rubbed at his arm, the ache deep and constant. The cruel side effect of the experiment that had returned him to life, but cursed him with unrelenting pain. The sound of a door slamming echoed through the house, followed by muffled curses. Naruto looked up. He didn't need to guess who it was. His door flew open. Kushina stood there, her face flushed with anger and anguish, her body trembling. In 2 strides, she crossed the room, pulling him into a crushing embrace. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she clung to him desperately. You'll always be my baby boy. Her voice cracked, and the hug tightened. Too tight. Naruto gasped softly, pain lancing through his arm, his back, and his shoulders. The flesh itself seemed to mold unnaturally beneath the pressure, as if his body were clay. "Mom!" His voice strained. He pushed against her instinctively, his strength flaring uncontrolled. The force sent her stumbling back, crashing against the wall. Naruto froze, horror flashing in his eyes. His chest heaved. His hands trembled. It was happening again, just like 4 days ago, when the symptoms first flared after his return. That night, he had stood before the village trying to speak of his ordeal, but unable to speak loud enough due to what Orochimaru did to him, leaving his mother forced to speak in his place. That night, he had nearly crushed her wrist without realizing it, his strength uncontrollable under the experiment's lingering effects. That night, when everyone believed he was strong enough to endure, while in truth, he was in agony. That night before he collapsed into a husk, his skin sloshing off and his body breaking apart. And now, the same nightmare was unfolding. Kushina pressed a hand to the wall, tears blurring her vision as she walked to her son. He stood there, trembling, his breath ragged, his eyes shadowed by pain and guilt. "Mom," Naruto whispered, his voice low and raw. Her heart shattered as she stepped toward him, but fear coiled with grief. She could see it. His body wasn't healing, it was breaking. And no one knew how long he had left. But guys, I'm going to end it off right here. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe while you're at it. Remember, the like goal for the video is 7 likes, so hit that like goal. And without further ado, I am out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Stay blessed, y'all.